Hi, welcome to another episode of Knit Chat Chow. This is a series where you join me while I do three of my favorite things. Knit, that's the knit part. Talk, that's the chat part. And eat, that's the chow part. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for the intro. This is only my third one. So what I am knitting on today is a Wool and Honey by Unmarried. This is being knit out of CC's wool. Beautiful yarn, expertly dyed in the colors of upstate New York. This is fingering weight. It's 100% superwash merino, and the colorway is Honey Bee, which I think is perfect for a wool and honey, right? What I'm eating is this really sushi, my all-time favorite food. I think it's a tie between sushi and pizza. I could literally eat either one of them like probably every day. And what I'm talking about. So I don't really know what this episode is going to be called, but I'm pretty much going to be talking about like anti-diet, diet culture, anti-diet, like, I don't know. This is an episode that I put off for like a really long time. I actually was all set up to like record with a friend of mine. I think on my last one I said I was going to record with my friend who is a personal trainer, and we were all set up to do so, and then we just ate. I had like a gorgeous charcuterie board, and we just ate it and talked, and I kind of like punked out on like recording it. So here's the thing is that I think I said in like my first one of these that this is not meant to be like any kind of controversial thing. Like, I don't like controversy. I don't want to get into any kind of debates with anybody. This kind of all stemmed because I did Vlogtober, and I kind of thought I would miss like just kind of like the chattiness of like a vlog. And not such like a structure, like formal, like podcast, which I actually I have no objection to podcasting. I just literally have been like such monogamous knitting that like I didn't really have like a variety of things to be showing. So that's why I haven't done a podcast in a while. But anyway, I kind of liked the chattiness of like a vlog. So this is how I came up with this Knit Chat Chow kind of series. So this is something I've been working on for a while, this idea of being anti-diet or, you know, that kind of thing, intuitive eating, which I'm not necessarily an intuitive eater. So anyway, so I kind of like was back and forth and wishy-washy on this because people have very strong opinions. People have very strong opinions about a lot of things, but I didn't really want to come across as like preachy or offensive or like this is what you should do or this is, you know, diet culture is bad and this is good or, you know, stuff like that. Like, but I've been learning a lot and listening a lot, and I'm starting to feel kind of passionately about it as well. And so I do feel like I want to talk about it. So a couple of disclaimers. I'm just going to really try to speak from my point of view, how this is affecting my personal life. This is not a you should or you shouldn't or stop doing or don't do or anything like that. I am absolutely 100% not an expert. I'm not an expert in any field except dental billing, and I don't think people really want to see me talk for a while about dental billing. So I'm not an expert at this. This is just kind of how this kind of affected my life. I'm not really trying to open any kind of dialogue about like what's healthy, what's not healthy, who's healthy, what's a healthy weight. Like, I'm not really trying to like open that up. Like, that's not really what this is about. This is about, it is actually more of like mindset. I'm not a huge fan of that word. That word mindset kind of like skeeves me out now because I've been listening to like a bunch of anti-MLM stuff as well. And like, that's a very, common word to use is like mindset. So yeah, I'm just gonna pause for a second because I see an Amazon truck coming down and my dog's gonna freak out. So this is the third time I'm restarting it because she won't stop barking. So yeah, this is just more of like how it's affected my thinking, how I view myself, how I view, you know, the world, that kind of thing. So I will link down below all my resources, basically, like the podcasts I've been listening to. I have a couple of podcasts, I have a couple of Instagram accounts, and I have a YouTube channel for whatever like platform you're most interested in getting information from. You know, the interesting thing too about this is like, okay, so one of the main podcasts that kind of got me into this was a podcast called Maintenance Phase. It's really interesting. It's super smart. The two people who host it are very like studious and really into like studies and statistics and just questioning things. And it's really kind of like affected how I kind of view things too, just in almost every other way. Like when I receive information, whether it's about health or health and wellness, whatever, or let me see, like, I don't know, any kind of information. I mean, you know, the pandemic has really been on a lot of people's minds. And so like, anytime I hear any information about that and like what we should be doing and what the numbers are and stuff, I don't know. It's just like the way that they view information that they receive has kind of like helped me like with how I view information from other places. So anyway, so for me, I've not been, you know, we have all of these words in society, right, to describe people who are not, I don't know, a certain body size. I don't want to say like ideal body size because I don't want to like offend anybody if they're like, well, I don't think thin is ideal. But, you know, we all know we live in a society where all of our celebrities, most of our celebrities, like it's all about being thin and fit and healthy and the way we look and everything like that. So we have all these words, right? So I don't know, like full figured or plus size or heavier or, you know, overweight or, you know, whatever. But from a couple of the places that I've been listening to information from have been saying things like smaller body size or larger body size, right? So I would consider myself in a larger body size. I haven't always been. I had thin privilege growing up. I was not very active. Like I wasn't like in sports. I didn't play like school sports or anything like that. I ate whatever I wanted. Like I thankfully did not come from a home where diet was always in the conversation. Like I didn't have a mother I had a female mother, so, you know, she would talk about weight sometimes, but she did not stand in front of the mirror and scrutinize herself. She didn't always talk about gaining weight or losing weight. She did not police food like that. You can't eat that. That's junk food, or you have to eat something healthy. Like, I mean, she, you know, we had home cooked meals and, you know, we had healthy snacks and stuff like that, but it was not like, I mean, we definitely were able to eat ice cream and have dessert and all of that stuff. So I did not grow up in a house that was like particularly strict when it came to that kind of thing. It wasn't really talked about. Like we didn't really talk a lot about like, you know, what's a healthy dinner versus not healthy, or junk food, or that's not good, or that's bad. Like that was not the kind of language that was in my house. And I'm grateful for that actually, because I did not grow up. I mean, I grew up as a normal like American kid thinking I was fat when I wasn't fat, or comparing myself to my friends my age, especially around puberty and when I got into high school. So like I grew up in that kind of normal climate, but I did not grow up in a home that was like overly like things were fat free, or my mother calorie counted, or like I said, scrutinized herself in the mirror. So I'm grateful for that. I did grow up doing those things myself, not calorie counting, but scrutinizing myself in the mirror, just because, you know, that's how society is. But I'm grateful that I didn't get that reinforced from an early age. So then what had happened was I got married and I put weight on like a lot of people do. I'm sure it was a combination of hormones and, you know, getting comfortable, like people say, and, you know, all of these other things. But, you know, I ended up gaining weight and I am now in a larger body size than I used to be. So that has always been, you know, it's not like it's always been on my mind, but it's been on my mind. I mean, I've been married it'll be 16 years in May. So I've been, you know, it's been on my mind a lot. Like I have a box of old clothes that I never got rid of that I would love to get back into. You know, like I've done all of those normal things of like wishing I was thinner and thinking I look fat and all this other stuff. Right. So that's kind of how it's affected my life. It's not like it's been like a thing my whole life. So when I started listening to this podcast, Maintenance Phase, they actually did a lot. They do a lot of going into like why our thinking is structured the way that it is around weight and health and things like that. And, so even growing up, we would have the presidential or president's physical fitness test in school, right? And everybody's body is shaped differently. And so because of the way my body was shaped, although I was in a smaller body, my weight was higher than other people who were in a similar body size, like as far as like pant size and things like that. So I always felt like, when they did the calculation of like height, I was always heavier than what like the chart would say that I should be. And so from a very early age, I do feel like I kind of figured out, like around puberty age, I did kind of figure out that like, okay, my body probably I'll never be the weight that the recommended, and that's okay with me. That's fine. Then as time went on, I don't know when I really started hearing about BMI and things like that, then I don't want to say I always known what my BMI was, but then that was always the thing. Like, well, weight itself is not going to be the biggest indicator of whether or not I look the way that I should look or am the way that I should be. What about BMI and stuff like that? So as I started listening to this podcast, a lot of really interesting things about the history of things were coming to my attention. So, for example, the president's physical fitness test. I do have a couple of notes here because there's a lot. So the physical fitness test was never like it's like arbitrary numbers, like how many push-ups you should be able to do or sit-ups you should be able to do. Climbing a rope, like for example, has like absolutely no significance whatsoever. Like I don't even know where that came from. But all of these kinds of things of like where you should be and how, you always had the kids that overperformed. You always had the kids that way underperformed. I was kind of like in the middle. I've never been able to climb a rope. I actually was able to climb the rope with the knots in it, but then they switch you to the other rope and there was like not even a chance. I could never in my life ever do a pull up, but I was flexible. So when you sat on the ground and you did that box thing, like it's just, I started to realize like the way that we view what's healthy, what's fit, is really based on like kind of nothing really. Not that the physical fitness test is the only it's not like my adult life, none of my adult friends are like, oh yeah, I can't do the presidential physical fitness test, so I need to work out more. Like, I'm not saying that guides anybody's adult behavior, but it just goes into who we become as adults and how we view ourselves and others and that kind of thing. The other thing that they go into in this podcast is BMI, which I thought was very interesting. So we all know, and this is the funny thing too, is that like, anytime you talk to anybody, generally speaking, most of the time, people do have that language of like, well, it's not like completely black and white. It's not the most cut and dry thing. There are variations, there are nuances, but then when it comes to judgment of other people, it's very much like, well, your BMI, or well, this or that, obesity. I'm going to try not to use that word because I don't like it, but it's like, it's all well and good when someone looks the way that you want them to look, but then when they don't, it's like, well, BMI, you know what I mean? So it's just like very frustrating. Like with a thinner person, it's like, well, your BMI is a little high, but then we don't know, and muscle weighs more than fat and all this other stuff. Like, but then when it's like a person in a significantly larger body, it's like, wow, their BMI, So it's like, pick a side really. Do you want it to be a BMI thing? Do you not want it to be a BMI thing? So a couple of very interesting things that I learned about BMI from this podcast, and they can be checked out. It's not like I'm just listening to one person say something and be like, oh yeah, that's fact. But the BMI scale was like invented in like the 1830s by this guy who had like no medical background, like whatsoever. And I can't remember what the purpose of the BMI was, but it was not like based on like health and wellness and fitness. It was like he was trying to find, he was like looking at gathered data, trying to see like what the general body type of like a very specific group of people was. And he really he looked at state gathered data. I think it was like Sweden or something, but please, I'm not sure. It was Europe somewhere. And he was looking at state gathered data, which I don't even remember how they got this state gathered data, but he was looking at the height and weight of white men from France and Scotland. So I'm not exactly sure how BMI has changed over the years, but it has not changed significantly. So not only is BMI inherently like misogynistic because it's based on male bodies, it's also inherently like I don't want to say racist because it wasn't intentionally meant to be racist. These were just like the things that he was gathering his data from, but it's not inclusive like at all. It's not inclusive for women. It's not inclusive for people of color. It's like, it's so like specific to men, white men from France and Scotland, even not even like white men from another country. Like, it's just so bizarre. And it was never intended for like individual assessment. It was more of like, hey, here's this like interesting information that I found is like most men from these two countries, you know, have this height and weight correlation basically. It doesn't take into consideration muscle. It doesn't take into consideration fat, like how much percentage of fat on your body. It doesn't take into consideration your build or your age. So like, it's basically like your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. And that's it. Like, that's it. So everybody knows that like a bodybuilder's BMI is going to be in an unrecommended range, right? Everybody knows that, but then they don't want to apply that when it comes to someone who looks like they're in a larger body. It's like, well, if you're fit, if you look fit, if you appear to be healthy, if you appear to be in a size that's acceptable, then we can explain it away that, okay, your BMI is not like the end all be all of health. But if somebody looks like they're in a larger body, looks like they have too much fat on them, it's like, well, BMI, and you have to be careful and you have to make sure and all this other stuff. All right, so that's like how it started. And then insurance companies started using it it was in the interest of charging, this is what the podcast said, so obviously you can fact check me if you like, but insurance companies started using it in the interest of charging fat policy holders more for their insurance policies. That's what the thing said. I did not fact check it myself. I just thought it was interesting. And then in 1995, I did fact check this. In 1995, the WHO, so the World Health Organization, started using it as a global standard for measuring obesity. There were a couple of things that happened when this happened, was that pediatricians, when the World Health Organization wanted to do this, pediatricians said it shouldn't be used for children. And then there was also WHO staff that said, the evidence shows, though, that you can still be healthy even if you do have a higher weight. And in both instances, the WHO overall, like whoever was making those decisions to like finalize it or the vote or whatever, they both like, they overrode both of those things. It is used in children and it doesn't really matter. Like they don't basically acknowledge that you can technically be healthy at a higher weight. I think the other thing is too, is like, what does it mean to be healthy? I know that there's a lot of indicators and blood work is very important. So your blood work can show that you have, you know, diabetes or things like that, high cholesterol. And we all know, like, I'm not trying to dispute that blood work does not indicate, like, if you have high cholesterol, you're fine. Everything is fine. I'm not trying to say that at all. And as I get like further into this discussion, I also feel like it's important for me to say that like, I think people like to hear one thing and run with it. Like, for example, I will say, like, a person's weight alone is not an indication of how healthy they are, right? Or when I start to talk about how that impacts what I eat and what I put into my body, people will be like, well, you can't just eat whatever you want. You're basically just saying eat whatever you want. I actually do not think that, will not say that. And that's not what I'm intending to talk about when I talk about like how I view food and how I view what I eat. That is not my stance, just to get that out there. My stance is not to eat whatever you want and never exercise and you can still be healthy. That's not what I'm trying to say. Okay, so then in 1998, the United States gets on board. And I think a lot of news outlets, or there was like a news report that basically said like millions of Americans become fat overnight. And that was like in 1998 when the United States starts to get on board with the BMI being used as a standard for measuring obesity. And it's like all of these people that were never in this category before, because the BMI was adopted in the United States as part of this global standard, that like millions of people all of a sudden were like considered obese. And like overnight, like nothing changed. They didn't gain weight. Like that was their weight. There's actually like really good episodes about like the obesity epidemic and what that really means, and the obesity paradox and things like that. And it's just, I'm not going to be able to get into it. I don't want to have like a billion-hour-long episode of Chat Chow. So I'm going to leave that off, but I will say it's actually a very, very interesting listen. So you might be interested in listening to those episodes about obesity and the obesity epidemic. Okay. So that's where the BMI comes into play. And I know that people are going to think to themselves maybe, or even comment like that I don't look at BMI, like if I'm another person, I don't look at BMI as the only indicator, or I don't think doctors look at BMI as the only indicator. And that's fair. Like, I'm not saying that you walk into a doctor's office and they only take your weight and your height and they're like, you're fat and you're unhealthy. Like, I'm not saying that that's what doctors do. I'm just saying I am no longer looking at BMI as any kind of anything. Like, absolutely not. I don't even know what my BMI is. I don't care to know what my BMI is. I think it's a completely irrelevant number. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, honestly, like, if I'm going to worry about my health, I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to get my blood work. And then I'm going to go off of what's my cholesterol, what's my sugar, what's my, what are all these other indicators? Like, I think that BMI as a number is like a completely irrelevant thing that you don't even need to know it. Like, you don't even need to know it, to be honest with you. I think the other interesting thing is that, like, if you're using BMI to categorize who, I know I said I wouldn't say this word, the O word. If you use BMI to figure out who is in the category of, a third of people in that category actually have completely normal health markers. So like, you take your BMI, you see that you're in this category, then you get your blood work and you're actually completely and totally healthy. You have totally normal, within normal range, healthy markers. Then what was the point in even finding out what that number is anyway? There wasn't even a point in it. Like, it's completely unnecessary. Or you get that number, you realize you're in that category, then you get your blood work and they're like, well, yeah, I mean, you have high cholesterol. Well, I mean, because you're fat. Like, that's not why. So another interesting thing about this podcast was they say a lot, correlation isn't causation. So just because I am in this category, and also I have high cholesterol, I don't have high cholesterol because I'm in this category. It correlates, but it's not causation, because there's a third of people in that category where it doesn't, that's not true. And here's the thing is, like, there is that thing called paradox where somebody is in that category and yet has completely normal health markers, and they're like, well, I mean, it's a paradox. It's not really. Maybe that number is just completely and totally arbitrary. Like, and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm not saying don't get blood work. I'm not saying don't try to be healthy or have healthy lifestyle because it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is this specific indicator, this specific number doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Get your blood work done and find out what your health really is. Because I think another thing is it's like, I hate to use things like agenda. People are pushing this thin agenda or whatever, but like people want to look at thin people, right? We want to look at people who are attractive and thin. And we can want to look at somebody and be like, wow, I'm just worried about you being healthy. You actually don't have to worry about fat people being healthy because you don't know anything about them. So you don't have to worry about that. And I'm not saying you don't have to worry about that. I'm saying I don't have to worry about that. Or for myself, having gained a significant amount of weight since my adolescence or since I got married, that doesn't mean that I am like automatically like, oh, well, I'm unhealthy. In all fairness, I have not gone to the doctor. I don't go to the doctor. That's terrible of me. I really need to go. I need to go to the doctor and I need to get a physical and I need to get blood work and I need to figure out where I really am at because it's important to know. I think knowledge is power and it's important to know, right? But I shouldn't be like this just because I'm not in the same size pants or body size that I used to be. That doesn't mean like, oh, well, I'm unhealthy. I let myself get unhealthy. Not necessarily. You know what I mean? And that's going to go a little bit into a little bit later about like how this impacts me and how I view how I live my life, basically. Okay. So I think the other thing too is like BMI is not really good for thin people either, because if you go on BMI and I have a healthy BMI and you're not getting regular physicals and you're not getting your blood work checked regularly, you could have a problem that you don't think that you're even at risk for, right? Because there's a lot of like heart attack, for example, and they use this example in the podcast of Bob Harper, who is that, you know, very famous fitness instructor or personal trainer. I don't know what his like actual title is, but he was on Biggest Loser, right? And he was very healthy, right? He was very healthy and he had a heart attack, right? So like, was he not getting regular blood work or not making, do you know what I mean? Like, because he didn't think he was at as high of a risk for a heart attack as a fat person. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not good for anybody, this idea of BMI. It's really not good for anybody. Everybody should be going to the doctor. Everybody should be getting blood work. I mean, I'm not going to get into like insurance and healthcare and how broken that system is. I'm talking about like just in a perfect world. Like everybody should know what their health is and eat healthy and exercise and go off of those numbers and not just go off, oh, well, I'm like on a chart. I'm considered, you know, the O word. This is also really interesting. Lizzie just looked at me. So they talk about like the epidemic, right? And how they have these statistics, right? Statistically speaking, people who are in this category have this risk of death, right? Well, you can't really die from being fat. Like you might die from a heart attack or you might die from high cholesterol. You might die from, you know, something else, but it's not like because you don't die from fat, you die from a health complication that may or may not be caused by your weight. It's also very nuanced because I'm not saying that there are going to be people who lost weight and their markers got better. So I'm not trying to say like it's not, it's correlated. It's definitely correlated, but don't look at something. I can't look at something with such a narrow lens of like, well, look how large they are. They're definitely not healthy. Like you don't know that. Like, I don't know that. Okay. So you have this higher risk of, you know, your X times higher at risk of dying of a heart attack or having this diabetes, hypertension, like all kinds of things, right? We have all heard it. All right, so they introduced a couple of other statistics, which is really interesting. So for example, unmarried people have 2.5 times the mortality rate of married people. So unmarried people have 2.5 times the mortality rate of married people. Okay, well, when you hear that, like as a married person, I might not think anything of it. I might be like, cool, I'm gonna live longer. As an unmarried person, you might get like a little bit like, wait a second, what? Like, that can't be right. Like, I'm not gonna die just because I'm unmarried, right? So you start to think like, well, maybe it's because they live alone. Like maybe if I had an accident because I'm married, I have a higher chance of my husband calling the ambulance or getting me to somewhere where I can get help, right? Whereas if you live alone, if you fall or have an accident, you're all by yourself. Like who's going to call 911, right? So maybe that's why. It can't just be the simple fact of like getting a ring on your finger and getting a certificate. Like the marriage certificate, your legal marriage can't be, well, now I have the certificate, so I'm 2.5 times less likely to die, right? So if that's how we scrutinize, there was this other thing too with left-handed people. Like left-handed people have a higher mortality rate than right-handed people. And first of all, we have to scrutinize how we got these numbers, right? What kind of studies did they do to get to these numbers, right? So basically they kind of looked at like how many left-handed people were alive in a certain time period and how many left-handed people are alive now and versus right-handed people. And so percentage wise, the percentage of the population of left-handed people to right-handed people is lower than it used to be, right? So ergo, they must be dying faster or sooner, right? Well, like a while ago, 50 years ago, in school, you weren't like allowed to be left-handed. Like there would be left-handed kids and they would get like told that they had to write with their right hand. So if somebody is right-handed as an adult, doesn't mean they weren't left-handed as a kid. It doesn't mean that like maybe that left-handed person isn't alive anymore because they're not left-handed anymore, they're right-handed. Like, first of all, how are you getting your numbers? What studies did you do to prove this fact? And second of all, just because the number says that doesn't necessarily mean that handedness indicates when you're going to die. Because logically speaking, right? Logically speaking, that shouldn't matter. What hand you use really shouldn't matter your lifespan. Okay? So if we're going to scrutinize these statistics, why are we not as scrutinizing of statistics like you have this percentage higher chance of dying because you're in this category on the BMI scale? Like, shouldn't we scrutinize these things? Okay, well, how did we get these numbers? And how long of a study was it? And how many people did it involve? And what did they really die from? And do you know what I mean? Like, what's really happening? Like, what's really happening? Maybe that's true, but like, why are we scrutinizing some things and not scrutinizing others? That's my question. Okay, so don't leap to the reason why when you hear a number. Like, don't. Okay. That was a little bit of a tangent. Okay. So this kind of also goes into like diet culture. So we don't want to be in this category of the BMI because it's really bad for our health, right? So what are we going to do to rectify that, right? We're going to lose weight. This is not about what you eat or how you eat it, or I'm talking more of like framework in your mind. Everybody's body is different. I completely believe that some people, when they eat carbohydrates, even certain carbohydrates, they feel different. They don't feel as good, or it doesn't fill them up, or it doesn't satiate them, or they feel sluggish, or people who have gluten allergy might actually, like, they're allergic to gluten. They can't eat it, right? So I'm not talking about like, well, keto is dumb and this, that, and the other thing is dumb. I'm not talking about like diets like that. Like, know your own body. If this certain food does not make you feel good, go right ahead and not eat it. But to villainize certain foods for all people, like carbs are bad and protein is good, you can't make that kind of blanket statement because people's bodies are so nuanced and so intricate. You personally don't want to eat carbs? Go right ahead and don't eat carbs. But don't preach to me like about like how carbs are bad. The other thing about diets is that generally speaking, for the majority of people, now it's not everybody, there are definitely people who have been on a diet for 100 years, right? Generally speaking, for the majority of people, they're not really sustainable. Like, they're not long term. So if you want to eat a certain way to try to lose weight, generally speaking, if you stop eating that certain weight, or eating that certain way, you're going to put the weight back on. And the other thing is that statistically speaking, there's a 98% failure rate. Like 98% of people who lose weight will gain it back and possibly more. And this is not to say, obviously there's those 2% of people, there are those people who lost 300 pounds and kept it off for 10 years, or people who have lost even less, obviously less than that, like 10 pounds. Oh, I needed to lose 10 pounds. I lost 10 pounds. I never put it back on. And I think that's great. I think that's absolutely great. I'm not trying to say like, it's not good. I'm just saying like, when I start to look at myself, if 98% of people fail at losing weight, if I lose weight, which I have, and gained it back, which I have, it doesn't mean anything about me. Like, I'm not a bad person. I'm not, I don't not have willpower. Then if I don't have willpower, or I'm a bad person, or I stunk at it or failed at it, so did 98% of other people. Like, who do I think I am that I should be in that 2%, right? But so it's just like that kind of like how like is in my brain now of like, okay, listen, diets really aren't sustainable, statistically speaking. And you're not a bad person if you lost weight and gained it back, right? Let me see. The other thing is that like your weight might not be as in control as you think it is, right? My weight might not be as in my control as I think it is. There's a lot of things that contribute to weight gain and weight loss and weight, like, I don't know, like keeping that weight on. Like, stress is a huge factor. People talk about cortisol all the time, and it, like, if you're stressed out, you retain or cortisol levels or whatever. I'm not like an expert. I said I wasn't an expert. Oh my gosh. You guys are gonna think this is a hot mess. Anyway, I haven't really tried to lose weight a lot. I did recently. I lost about 25 pounds. I felt really great. I obviously stopped eating the way that I was eating, and I did slowly put it back on. But the way that I did it was restriction. So there's a lot of different types of diets out there. Like there's diets where you eliminate certain food groups. There are diets where it's like basically just like a deficit, a caloric deficit, and you only eat this many calories. And obviously people do lose weight, right? So calories out, calories in. If you eat less calories than you burn, you're obviously going to lose weight, right? But then what happens when you go back to like normal eating? Like 98% of people put their weight back on. That's what happens. The other thing is too, that's really interesting is like there was an episode of Food Psych, which is a podcast I've linked below, where it was described in this way. If you go to the ocean and you're swimming in the ocean and a wave comes and you dive under the wave, right? You hold your breath because humans can't breathe underwater. If the wave is particularly big and you're under for a longer, when you come back up, you're going to be out of breath. You're going to be gasping for air, right? No one says to you, you're emotionally breathing, right? So restriction of air equals on the opposite end, you're going to be breathing heavier, right? You're going to be breathing harder and heavier and deeper and getting in more oxygen deprivation. You're going to need more oxygen on the tail end, right? So in my case with restrictive diets, if I restrict myself from a certain food group or calories or whatever it is, On the tail end of that, I find that I have less self-control, right? So like I'm going to make decisions on what I eat, and I'm obviously going to eat foods with lower calories so that I can have more of them, right? So that eliminates foods with higher calories. So quote unquote junk food. So like let's say I eliminate cookies because I don't have room in my diet for those calories. At the end, when I finally have a cookie, or like we're talking about like what about cheat days or cheat meals or things like that, you tend to overindulge. You overindulge because you've missed it. You overindulge because you feel deprived, and you overindulge because tomorrow I'm going to go back on this diet and I'm not going to be able to have, let's say, pizza. Like I'm not going to be able to have pizza again for a week. So I'm going to get my fill of pizza. So that is like the cycle of like restricting versus, restricting and then binging, right? So the idea is that if you just let yourself, like allow yourself the foods that you, like that you like and that you want, and don't be so hard fast on like losing weight. Like I want to lose weight, I want to be in this certain body size, I want to look like this or whatever, or even your health, like I think that I'll be healthier if I'm thinner, or healthier because I eat healthy foods and stuff like that. Then you're not going to eat as much, as you think you would, because you've been in this cycle of like restricting and overeating, right? So I've heard people say like, oh, I can't even have that kind of that food in the house or else I'm just going to go crazy. Well, you're probably going to go crazy because you probably don't allow yourself to have it. Like when was the last time you even let yourself have it? Of course you're going to go crazy. And I've seen this personally, because like, right, I'm talking about myself. I have seen this personally where I do feel like I didn't want to eat a certain thing because I didn't want to be fat or get fat or all of this other stuff. And then I would have it in the house and then I just wouldn't be able to stop eating it. So like, once I got onto this thing of like, listen, I'm done with diets. I look how I look, right? This is just how I look. And as long as I'm not like, all right, I have to go to the doctor. Said this a million times. I do. I have to go to the doctor. I have to get blood work. I have to see where I'm at, because I don't know. I might not be healthy. I might have high cholesterol. I might have all kinds of other things going on, right? But let's say theoretically I am, right? Let's say theoretically my weight has nothing to do with my health. So after I've gotten off this thing of like, I'm just not worried about it. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. And this is not to say I'm going to eat whatever I want, whenever I want. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm craving a certain thing, I'm going to have that thing, and that's it. I'm going to have it, right? I've had certain things in my cabinets for like a week or two and haven't had it at all because I just don't feel like it. I don't need it. It's fine. I'm not craving it. I'm not interested in it. Like, because the other idea is that like, listen, I'm saying cookies because I'm not a huge sweet eater, but like for some reason I've been like on this cookie kick and like craving cookies like for some reason. So let's say Oreos, for example. Okay, I'm gonna have an Oreo. I'm gonna have 2. I might have 5 if I feel like it. Like I'm just gonna eat until like I'm done having them. And generally speaking, I personally don't overeat them because like I get nauseous pretty quickly after sweets. I know that some people will, and some people will feel like they're binging them, and some people will feel like they eat the whole thing. But like, I'm going to have however many I feel like having now, because tomorrow, if I want some more, I'll have some more. Or in a couple of hours, if I want another one, I'll have another one. Or, later on tonight, if I want some more, I'll have some more. So I'm not going to eat like the whole package, because then after today, I'm not having any more cookies. So I'm going to eat the whole package today. Like, I'm just going to have however many I feel like is going to satisfy my craving. Like, and I get it. I'm not an expert. The people that I have been following are, one of them is like an eating disorder specialist. And she said like, yes, you will go off the rails for a while, but eventually you will regulate, and you have to give yourself enough time to regulate, and not everybody regulates in the same time. And listen, I'm not a specialist. If you feel like this is something that you are interested in or struggling with or want more information on, please go to the resources and do your own research and listen to your own stuff. For me personally, I've never struggled. with, you know, any kind of significant eating disorder. I've never had that kind of problem. So I can only speak for myself. But when I was losing weight and I was restricting calories, I did find that when I did a cheat meal or a cheat day or whatever, I did go overboard. I 100% went overboard. And it's really hard. It's not like a switch that I could flip of like, oh, I'm done with diet culture. So now I have completely normal, sane thoughts and I don't, you know, like it was not like that for me. It was a little bit off the rails. I did feel a little bit off the rails when I finally was like, no, I'm done. I'm going to look how I'm going to look. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. And I did for weeks. I was just like, okay, I'm getting a little bit crazy now. And the reason being was because I am trying to be more conscious of how foods make me feel. So there's this expression of like, eat whatever makes you feel good. And people like to run with that. Well, no, because what if what makes me feel good is brownies and pizza and all kinds of fattening foods or whatever high calorie, whatever they are, you know what I mean? Like, because that's what makes me feel good. Like, no, we're not talking about like if you really have like emotional things that you're dealing with. We're just talking about in general, eat what makes you feel good in the sense that if carbs make you feel sluggish, don't eat them. If protein makes you feel better, then eat that. If you want to have a little bit of sugar, go ahead and eat it. Like, don't eat whatever. Like, when I say I've been trying to focus on what makes me feel good, eating what makes me feel good, that means eating something that I don't really feel nauseous afterwards, that I don't feel sick afterwards, that I don't feel tired or sluggish afterwards, eating foods that make me feel like full and not over full and not sluggish and not this and not that and not negative feelings, right? So if I'm eating cookies, I know I keep talking about cookies. If I'm eating Oreos and I eat 1 or 2 or 4, and then I like, let's say I eat 6, I'm like, ugh, last one, that last 2. Like, okay, let's just be a little more cognizant. Don't not eat the Oreo. Like, have 4. Don't have 6, because that didn't make me feel good. That made me feel sick, right? That's what I'm trying to say. The other thing too is like about exercise. So when I was trying to lose weight and I was restricting my calories, I was exercising a lot more. Exercise is very hard for me. I don't love it. I've never been naturally drawn to it or naturally being drawn to being an active person. I do like being outside. I like walking. I like hiking. I do like being outside, but like even when I was in a smaller body, if people were like, let's go play volleyball, I would be like, I'm just not a very like in shape person, I guess. Like my cardio isn't that great. Like I get winded. Like even being in a smaller body, I was not like physically fit. So I've never really been like that drawn to like that outdoorsy kind of thing. Like even running, like, I'll go for a walk. I like walking. I like hiking. All right. So when I'm not as active, I'm not as fit, physically fit. I'll get out of breath with things that I don't want to be out of breath with. My legs will hurt when I don't want them to hurt. Like I feel like I didn't really do very much and now my legs are sore. So I was working out and I was working out with my personal trainer friend and I felt great. I felt really, really good. But I started to focus on things that would burn the most amount of calories in the least amount of time because I don't like working out. So if I can burn 300 calories or 250 calories in 30 minutes, why would I want to do this longer workout and burn the same amount of calories? So I would focus on things like HIIT workouts and things like that. And which are great and fine if you like them, that's great. But like I was not really focusing on body movement that I enjoyed mentally as well as physically. I was focusing on body movement that got me the most bang for my buck because I want to burn calories, right? I want to eat fewer calories and I want to burn more calories. So my workouts were not particularly enjoyable. I got them over with. They were half an hour, 15 minutes even sometimes, and I got them over with, right? So then when I kind of came off that or got a little lazy, I can't remember what happened, why I kind of stopped working out and stopped dieting. I didn't want to work out. Like, I don't want to go back there and do like, I have like a gym in my house. It's not a fancy gym, but it's a gym. I don't want to go back there and do a HIIT workout. I don't want to sweat like that. I just don't want to like overexert myself. And then I wouldn't do anything at all, because in my mind, it would be like, well, if I can't burn 200 calories, then I'm not going to do it at all. I don't want to take a walk where I burn 100 or 90. But like, why? But like, why? And so this is now the internal question that I'm asking myself is like, you like being outside. You like taking a walk. Go for a walk. Stop looking at how many calories you're burning on your walk, because we're not focused on weight loss right now. We're focused on being healthy no matter what size pants you're in or no matter what is on the scale. We're focused on being healthy. So eating good, nutritious foods that make me feel good, treating myself if I feel like I need a little treat or a lot of treat. There might be some days where I feel like I need a lot of treat, and I'll have a lot of treats. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, if I have more treats than I normally do, I'm not going to overnight develop high blood pressure or high cholesterol, right? As long as I'm like, okay, I go off on a tangent, right? So move your body and eat good food that makes you feel good. And indulge in certain things that you want to indulge in, so that you're not restricting, so that you're not overeating when you do indulge. Just have a balance. Just have a balance. Move your body. Like, if you want to go out and take a walk, then go take a walk. If you feel like you want to go for a little bit more and you want to go for a hike, go for a hike. I have weights back there. I actually really do enjoy weight training. I do. I don't want to lift super heavy weights. That's not my jam, but I like resistance bands. I like low weights. I like feeling like a little strong. I like feeling like like strength training. I like strength training. Just because if I do, 30 minutes of strength training and I only burn 100 calories, so what? That does not mean that the exercise or the movement was then not worth it. Stop focusing on it's only worth it if I'm losing weight. No, it's not actually. Building muscle is really great for your body. It's really great for your bones. It is good for your metabolism. It is good for strength. It's good to be strong. It's good for other things. If I have strong legs, then I can go on a maybe more exerting hike because my legs won't be as tired. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I need to stop putting things in a parameter of like, I'm not going to do it unless the benefit, unless the payoff is a lower number on the scale. That's the only reason why I'm going to do it. There's like a gazillion reasons to move your body. There's a gazillion reasons to get outside and breathe fresh air and take a walk or a hike or a run if you like running. There's a gazillion reasons to do that, or play volleyball if you like to play volleyball. Like, do what you like to do. Don't, I think cardio is good for your heart. Everybody knows good. Your heart is a muscle, and the way to work that muscle out is cardio. I understand that, but like, if you don't really love cardio, then do other things. Do you know what I mean? Like, do other things. Like, and if you do go to the doctor and you do have a health concern, like diabetes, for example, and you can't eat certain types of carbs, or you don't want to eat certain types of carbs, or you can't have sugar, or you can't have this, or you can't have that. Not eating something for a medical reason is very different than not eating something because you don't want to gain weight. Oh, I can't have sugar. Can you really not have sugar, or you just don't want to have sugar because you think sugar is going to make you fat? And that's a question for myself, not to judge you or anything else. And I'm not trying to dog people who want to lose weight. Like, if that's your goal and your goal is to lose weight, then more power to you. You do you, boo boo. I would be concerned if a friend of mine, like if you're a stranger, it's none of my business, but I mean, if a friend of mine or a family member of mine wanted to lose weight and then was doing some sort of unhealthy behavior, like, okay, I would not stand behind that. But you want to exercise more, you want to eat less junk food, like, you do you. I'm not trying to be like, everybody needs to stop being on a diet and everybody needs to stop losing weight and everybody needs to stop doing this or doing that. Listen, it's not any of my business what makes you feel good about yourself. That's none of my business. What I'm trying to say is I'm trying to reframe what makes me feel good about myself and how I look at myself and myself in the mirror. So what? I'm in a larger body than I used to be. I should exercise because it's healthy for me, and I should eat healthy foods because it's good for you. it's not healthy to eat cookies all day long. That's not a well-balanced diet. I am also of the thought pattern that a little bit of everything is good for you. Like, I don't demonize or villainize sugar or carbs or this or that. Like, I think everything has its place. So like, I don't think that there's any food out there that is like inherently bad for you and should never be eaten. I don't think you should only ever eat one type of food. So I obviously don't think you should only ever eat cookies. Probably you should have a vegetable and some protein and some like other things, right? I also don't think you generally speaking, I also don't think people should only eat protein and never eat a carb. You might be a carnivore, you might be in the carnivore diet, and I know nothing about it, but I thought your cells ran on carbs. Like, I think you might need some carbohydrates in your body to work well. We all need a certain amount of vitamins. There are certain foods that are completely devoid of a certain vitamin that our body needs. So you should probably eat a variety of foods to get a variety of vitamins and minerals and all kinds of good things for your body. So like, I'm not of the thought pattern of completely cutting out entire food groups. If you are, that's fine. I'm not trying to say that you're a bad person or whatever. Like, I don't know. You do you, boo-boo, and you do whatever makes your body feel good. If never eating a carb ever for the rest of your life makes your body feel good, that's between you and your doctor. That's between you and your doctor. And your doctor can educate you, and your doctor can say, oh no, it's absolutely fine to never eat a carb for the rest of your life. That's fine. I don't care. I have nothing to say. I'm not a doctor. Not a doctor. In my head and my parameters and my brain, it makes sense to me to eat a variety of foods. Now, I don't eat meat. I do eat fish, obviously, but even if you don't, even if you're vegan, I wouldn't consider vegan, because some people are like, whoa, what about vegans? I don't consider vegans cutting out a complete food group like protein or carbs or vegetables, or like, vegans may not eat meat, but they definitely get their protein. They get their protein from somewhere else, right? So that's what I mean by cutting out entire food groups. That's what I'm talking about, not like cutting out all meat. I'm talking about cutting out all protein, right? That's that, I think. I don't know. Like, now I don't even know if I'm gonna put this up. I just feel weird. I don't want people to think that I'm like, I don't know. It's what's been on my mind. It's what I've been thinking about. Maybe something I've said resonates with you. Maybe you're going to listen to this whole thing and be like, wow, that person is crazy and has no idea what she's talking about. And that actually might be true. I might not know what I'm talking about. And I think the other thing too is in a year's time, I might be sick of it and just be like, I don't care. I just want to be thin. I don't know what I'm going to do right now, where I'm at in my mind, this place. I've been listening to this about MLMs, and a lot of people in MLMs say things like this season of life. I really do not like that expression. I don't know if you guys have ever used that expression, but like, in this season of life, this is what's good for me right now. Like, I don't know, it makes me feel like, are you going to be dying soon? Because like, this season of life makes me feel like end of life. That's like a weird like line that I drew to that, but I don't know, that sounds weird to me, this season of life. But where I'm at right now in my life, this season of life, if you will, that's where I'm at, man. I want to exercise more. I don't want to only exercise if it's going to help me lose weight. I want to eat a variety of foods, and also I want to be in tune with my body. I want to consciously eat and say, this made me feel good, or this made me not feel so good. Like, I want to be a cognizant eater. Like, I want to know myself. I want to be at one with myself. No, but I want to be like, I don't want to mindlessly just shove food in my face because that's what I feel like doing. I want to have, and I don't want to scrutinize every single thing I put into my mouth either, though. I don't want to be like, oh, is this going to make me feel good or not make me feel good? I don't want to do that either. I don't really have that kind of brain space or time. Like, but generally speaking, I want to not, I just want to be, I want to be a healthy person. I want to eat healthy foods, and I want to exercise. I don't want to feel bad about myself because I'm not in the size body that I want to be in. And there's lots of other things that go along with that, especially in the knitting community. People talk about size inclusivity. I'm not, there's lots of things that contribute to how I feel about my body. And maybe one of those things is when I pull up Ravelry, 90% of the images I see are people in smaller bodies. Like, or Instagram or whatever. So, that's it. That's what I'm working on. That's my Knit Chat Chow. That's what I've been putting off for forever, and that's it. I have some ideas for some other ones that are less like intense. So that's it. The end. I hope you like it. It was good to see you guys. I'm not seeing you, but I hope it was good to see me. And maybe I'll see you guys soon. Bye.